Hello, everyone. I am Noah Khrachvik, and sitting next to me here is Kyle Pettis, a great friend of the Institute, and Teamster Steward. We are really excited to be talking tonight about the developments of the new labor movement. Some exciting things happening with the Teamsters, with UAW, and all kinds of stuff. So stick around, and we will get right to it after this.
Cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political and economic power.
All right, we're back. Welcome, everybody. You know, it's interesting to me that almost anytime I run into someone who tells me they're an anti-communist, they sort of cartoonify what a communist is as, a woke college activist. And I think that's kind of funny. With me here today is Kyle Pettis, who is a steward for the Teamsters. He's a trucker, another working class guy. And I don't know. What do you think of that myth, Kyle?
It's got some truth to it. I mean, there is a lot of that liberal intelligentsia that gets labeled as communist or whatever, but I have a feeling there's a lot of people in our audience who are probably working class Joes just like me, so I love to see that community.
Yeah, it's strange. Well, I mean, obviously it's a product of the last period of American history when there was a large middle class that's gone now. So a lot of it comes from that and the institutional power that the middle class gained on the left when it sort of divorced itself from the working class overall. And that's one of the things we're going to be talking about tonight is the relationship that communists and Marxism has to the movement, the organic movements of the working class. I mean, we're at a time in American history where there's basically a new labor movement arising, right? We've gotten to this point where we're in this era we call reproletarianization, right? The middle class is dying off and people are struggling more and more with every single day. Over 60% of the entire population struggles paycheck to paycheck, right? And that's messed up in a country where, I'm in millionaires' houses every day, and you should see the level of just ostentatious wealth that's around. So like all of these create all of this sort of motion within the economy, the way the general contradictions of financial capitalism have deteriorated our conditions that creates motion within the masses of people, right? We're not struggling because we want to or we think it's cool, but because we have to in order to feed our families, in order to get by in a system that's not built to work for us, right? And so what I really want to get first into is this new labor movement that seems to be forming and the way new forms of organization sort of collide with the old, right? So you're a Teamster, and that's a legendary union.
Yeah, a lot of history there.
I remember my dad telling stories about the Teamsters back in the day. But how does that compare to the like sort of new left organizations, right? And is there any crossover that you notice?
So yeah, I mean, I think the general attitude of like I think the most like maybe relatable movement that we have, like as far as like the new sort of pop-up labor movements, I would say something like what the Amazon workers are doing in a way, because it's very similar work. I mean, a lot of Teamsters, it's not just truck drivers. A lot of the accounts with the Teamsters union is warehouse workers. And so you can relate this to the just by the nature of their jobs. I mean, typical warehouse workers, I mean, this is like kind of like entry level jobs into like blue collar workforce, that a lot of people, young people in this country, are seeing as the only real avenue into trying to branch out, get out of poverty and get into the middle class, and that still holds true for like as the bedrock of our economy, for non-college educated workforce, is to get a decent paying blue collar job. I mean, the service industry doesn't provide it. I mean, we see like the barista movement going on with Starbucks and everything, and they're making gains and stuff. But at the end of the day, I mean, the service industry is never going to pay out the type of wages that something like a truck driver, a warehouse worker, a factory worker is ever going to make. And it's just it's a sad reality that like a lot of people, in the generation of people becoming adults now are facing, is just it's either work these dead end sort of service jobs or try to get into the blue collar workforce. And with that, it's coming like this realization of just how like flawed the system is, having to like clamber into these jobs that, and by and large, like Amazon is mistreating their employees. We all know that. That's just a truism. Everybody realizes that. But
Yeah. Let me interrupt you real quick with a personal story. I got an Amazon delivery 2 days ago, and I was just on my porch outside, and I'm talking to the driver, and I asked her, I was like, dude, like I'm watching you work, and it seems like you just don't care. Tell me the truth. Is it because they don't pay you enough to care? He's like, of course, of
yeah,
course. And so I got this guy a drink and a seltzer, no booze for someone who's going to drive, right? But
right.
I got him a drink, and we just sat and chatted for a minute. And no matter where you work at Amazon, there's like a few warehouses in my area. Um, there's caps on the limit of hours you can do, the amount of pay you get. So they sort of keep people trapped in this part-time world so that
Yep.
they don't begin doing what the ALU has done, right? And this guy in particular, his name was Rafik. He was sick of it. And he was like, even just talking to me, he was like ready to get organized. And that's not like me, having some magic that makes people want to organize. That was already there. I just kind of brought it out in him.
Yeah, I don't believe that for a minute. I think you could talk to anybody, they'd want to get organized, man. So you got that skill there. Don't undersell it.
Well, thank you, brother. I've gotten pretty good at it over the year. Organizing my shop was a mess, and
Right.
so I think I got okay at it during that time.
Absolutely. But that's exactly the mentality that's going on. I mean, like we we as a society, I mean, yeah, these working class people that are just entering the workforce who have been in there for a couple of years. I mean, they're starting to realize it's just there's no way up unless we all go together, and that's that in basic trade union consciousness starting to eke its way in. That's why you see movements like I said with like even the baristas. I mean, they're trying to organize what is essentially like a really shit job, like just getting down to the brass of it. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
job that they think that this is the only thing they can really get right now, and so might as well make it better, and that's the mentality.
Well,
Um,
yeah. I mean, if you look at the numbers on class mobility, it's non existent.
right.
And I think, not to always bring it back to Marxism, but I mean, this is the Midwestern Marxist Institute. But if you look at sort of what creates what were the barriers in American history to class consciousness, a big one of them was racism.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we're in this new era, post civil rights revolution now, where that sort of racial consciousness is not as prevalent. And so you get millions of people who would have in earlier generations felt some sort of affinity for their bosses based on race.
Right.
That's sort of, we can get into why that happens, but I don't think we need to. But instead of doing that, they're feeling more of an affinity for their coworkers. And I think that happens when you remove all of these restrictions and false consciousness. Sort of, I look at it like we're going down a river, right, towards class consciousness, and there's nets that are put up in the way. And that one was the biggest net there was. And so it's really exciting to see what happens as that net deteriorates in our era.
Yeah.
And I think we seem to be on the edge of this massive class consciousness. All we're missing really is a functioning, rebuilt Communist Party.
Yeah, that's the number one thing that's lacking. I mean, to talk about like racism and stuff like that, I mean, there are certainly still hurdles that exist in the workplace. The difference is I wouldn't even necessarily call them hurdles. I mean, there's these prejudices that exist within the working class, of course, as they exist in all of society. But these things are always, at least from things I've witnessed. I mean, I live in Missouri. There's a lot of racism in Missouri. I don't know if you're aware, but so. But guys, even if they're racist, I mean, they just put that shit aside because they realize they have this underlying class solidarity at the end of the day. Like they're like, yeah, I got prejudicial views, but you know what's more fucking important? Or sorry, but what's more important to me right now is I'm a working man. I see this other guy doing the same job as me. I don't care what his skin color is. Let's get this union in here. Let's get a good contract. Let's work together. And these things are taking a back seat, and it's just that they're seeing that their primary antagonism as it exists to them is that they're making a dime while the boss makes a dollar. I mean, that's what it fundamentally comes down to. And
that's what's up, and it strikes me as not a coincidence that now is the era that the ruling class is trying to push that division back into the front of our minds as much as they can.
Absolutely.
Right? And they play both sides of it. They got, the sort of wild racists against the wokes, and it's sort of this ongoing battle that just never stops for them.
Right.
So that we're constantly told to pick a side between these two, when the real side is all of us versus the people organizing that fight in the first place.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this even goes into the why we don't have a functioning communist party. I mean, you've got the certain parties are just too much like focused on things that just fundamentally do not matter to the majority of working class people, and it's just distraction upon distraction, and so we have this organic kind of like working class that is asserting itself in the workplace, but right now what they fundamentally lack is any sort of Marxist leadership, and that's kind of a big problem. I mean, they're making great gains on their own, but they're making gains only insofar as their workplace is concerned. They're taking this trade union consciousness that they've created for themselves, that they've attained, but they're not relating it outside of their workplace. They're not achieving class consciousness. They're not saying, wait a second, what's happening on my job is exactly parallel to what's happening in the rest of society. And they're not translating that. And that, that's always been the role of Marxists, is to imbue that class consciousness and really try to lead the working class in that direction. But it's sorely lacking in all of the circles where workers are actually authentically delivering their demands, and that would be the trade union movement.
Yeah.
It's really sad to see nowadays that like Marxist Leninists, communists of all hues are just they've written off the labor movement in a lot of ways. Either it's too reactionary, or they view it as just an inherently corrupt sort of entity that they don't want anything to deal with. So they just write it off, and you're missing the most advanced segment of the working class right there. I mean, they're this close to class consciousness. They've already realized it in the application of their own jobs. They've achieved that
Right.
trade unionism.
I mean, what did it? I mean, this is exactly what Lenin taught. You know, if we are Marxist Leninists, we should be learning from Lenin. There was a giant question on whether or not to enter reactionary trade unions during Lenin's time. And Lenin said, of course we should enter them. We should be anywhere people are in motion. That's what Marx taught back in the day as well. And it was this principle that led to the building of the CIO here in the US, right? That led to even the Great Steel Strike of 1919, which sort of kicks off Foster and the Communist Party. And when we sort of dismiss them all as, you know, the labor aristocracy and corrupt and blah, 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 it just leaves them to people who will be corrupt rather than us who can go in there and try to fix the corruption. Right? We're going to be talking about Sean Fain, who's the new president of the UAW. One of his huge things was an anti-corruption campaign, right? But I think a lot of this stems out of that class anatomy of the U.S. in the last period of history, right? The middle class just took over the institutions of the left, and what remained of the working class on the left sort of fell when the Soviets fell, right? And so we've had to sort of rebuild from scratch, and we're making ground. We are making real gains in this struggle, but we're not there yet. And one of the things that we have to be there on is to be able to sort of play a role that can coordinate all of this different activism in the labor movement and elsewhere, right?
And how else do you achieve that without a strong communist party?
Exactly.
It'll never happen without that.
Right. That is the role of the Communist Party. And it needs to not just declare itself in that role, but build itself into the sort of strong organization that organically gets the respect and support of all of these other organizations so that they trust it.
Yeah.
You know,
it has to prove itself in class struggle. That's the only way it can be done.
Exactly. If I go up to a UAW guy right now, unless I tell him my dad was a UAW officer, they're not going to listen to me, right? No. If I just go, hey, I'm in the Communist Party, we want to network you with everybody else and create a giant thing, they'll just laugh at me. Absolutely. They'll be like, communist what?
Well, they'll say, where were you last strike? Where were you last time we had a struggle? Why should I listen to anything you have to say? You know, and that's the reality. I mean, it's as real politic as it gets. You say you're going to do something for me, but where were you last time I needed help? Where were you when we were about to go on strike nationwide, you know? So,
you know, Gus Hall, one of my favorite quotes from him is that people don't respond to commands or exhortations, right? They don't respond to ideas, even good ideas, unless they see their self-interest reflected in that idea. Yeah. Working class organizations are never going to listen to anybody if they're not doing something for them. This is about genuinely making people's lives better. And what really grinds my gears is the sort of ultra left currents that say, oh, but American workers, their conditions are going to get worse. I want this revolution to make everyone's life worse.
Yeah, here, let me give you some statistics here, all right? So the big topic here, and this plays into what was just said, right? The big topic here is that UAW is about to be has already started on the 1st, the negotiations with the big three automotive companies in Detroit. They're called the big three. So you got General Motors, Ford, and this company called Stellantis that mainly makes batteries for pretty much every car ever. And these are like the bedrock of the United States as far as industry is concerned. And they negotiate all of these contracts together. If General Motors accepts the contract, all of them have to accept the contract. So this is a big deal, and this is nationwide. This isn't just Detroit or something. This is 150,000 workers that are being represented by this contract. And I'll take it a step further than that and say that it's 150,000 workers. But there's an economic formula that states that for every one worker in a factory, there's about 8 other jobs that are around that job. So for these 150,000 workers, my job is directly impacted by that as well. All of my trucking job is moving parts to the General Motors and back to their warehouses. So if they go on strike, guess what? I'm out of work. So this is a ripple effect in the entire economy. The place I deliver to isn't UAW, but if GM and Ford go on a strike, they don't have any business because they're making parts for only General Motors and Ford. So that's what we're talking about here.
And that's one of the sorry to interrupt, Kyle.
No, you're good.
That's one of the really important reasons we need the Communist Party presidents, because all of these things are connected, right? That, I mean, if we can't get lumber in, not just my shop, but everybody in the area shuts down. It's the same way for every industry here, and a lot of them are all connected under the same ownership, right? Mm-hmm. And or at least in some sort of cartel deal like the big three have. And that's when I say cartel, this is the actual definition of a cartel. It's these giant conglomerates cooperating in order to set prices, increase their negotiating power, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, this is what monopoly capital is made of, Mm. So, here's some statistics I wanted to pull up, and this is what Sean Fain is talking about. So all these numbers are just for the first 6 months.
Before that, Kyle, I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
Can you give an overview of who Sean Fain is for the audience? They might not know.
So he's the president of the UAW. He was recently elected. I think it was less than a year ago. And he's been a national organizer and things like this. He's really come up through the ranks, okay? And his run for the presidency of the UAW was based on 2 things. The first thing was that he wants to do away with all the corruption in the UAW. He ran on a strict, anti-corruption platform, okay? Because he's been a longtime member. He's gone through all of the levels of leadership, and he's seen the corruption firsthand, and he was sick and tired of it. So he's standing up to actually, fight the corruption within the UAW. Okay, and he's done a very good job of that. Since he's been elected, even the local at the factory that I deliver parts to was purged. I mean, there's been purges all throughout the country of all the corrupt leadership, and replacing them with actually monitored democratic elections, making sure that guys are actually receiving the votes, to get in these slots. There's no backroom deals. And, they've done a very good job reshaking up the leadership and bringing in people who have been, working on the factory, on the assembly line, all this stuff, bringing up, actual working guys to come and fill these slots. And so that was the first thing. The second thing is that he wants to take the fight to the companies. That was the other big part of his rhetoric. He's like, he said, there will no longer be pro-business deals in this union. The only deals we're going to sign is the deals we want to make. All right. This is, he's restructured everything. So going into these negotiations, what used to happen, and this was official policy of the UAW for the longest time, I think since the 80s, there's a thing called the president's demands. Okay. And the UAW president would have his list of demands, and he would bring it in and have a closed door meeting with the big 3 executives. Just him, no national organizers, none of the guys elected to go up there to represent the locals in that negotiation. Just the president in the room with the 3 executives and present the president's demands. Okay. And then they would go about with the show of supposedly negotiating a contract, but who knows what was said behind those closed doors. So Sean Fain said, "We're not doing."
Explains exactly how all that happens, don't he?
Yeah, it makes NAFTA make a lot more sense now, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Sean Fain said, "Yeah, that's bullshit. We're not doing that anymore." He's relisted what he's calling now the membership demands. Okay, he's done away with president demands. It's the membership demands. Okay,
That's
and
what's
there's
up.
no more closed door meeting. So this is what they hit. They went into Ford, I think, on the first, General Motors on the second, and Stellantis, I think, on the third. And this is what they gave to him flat out. And they said, "This is our core demands. All right, we'll see you next week." You know, so and so he's got a slogan. Before we get into the bands, he's got a slogan, and it's a pretty apt slogan if you ask me. And his slogan goes, "Record profits, record contracts." Okay, so what he's talking about here, and this is just in the first 6 months of this year. Okay, General Motors is got 3.2 billion with a B dollars in net profit. Okay, Stellantis $12.1 billion in net profit, and Ford at $1.9 billion in net profit. And that is just in the first 6 months of this year. Okay.
Jesus. It's
It's
amazing. And like at the same time, and we'll get into this, UAW workers are making so much less than they used to make back in the day. It's wild.
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to get into, stories about my dad and the and what they used to do to scabs, but it's
Yeah.
been different, and it's so refreshing to see someone as, I mean, frankly, heroic as Sean Payne, right?
Right.
Come in here and say, fuck that, things are changing, it went too far. I'm sorry to swear, everybody,
Hey,
but that's what he's
this is
doing.
a
He's saying,
swear-worthy
fuck that, it
topic.
went too far,
Absolutely.
and we're gonna fix it, right?
Yeah. I mean, these
Real
guys.
quick, before
Oh, God.
I know I talked over you, I'm sorry.
You're
I have
good.
a horrible habit of that. I want to make sure everybody, real quick break, like the stream, like the stream, subscribe, all that stuff. We get suppressed like crazy. We are actively censored. Okay, so please do us a favor. It takes 2 seconds to click a little icon, hit share if you want to send it to your friends, anything like that. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
And
Lastly, if you
I'll do
want to
you
help
one better.
support the
If you
Institute,
know anybody at UAW, if you know anybody working in an assembly line, you send them this video, right? Because
absolutely.
they got to be in the loop. I'm sure they are, because like I said, they're trying to focus the membership. They're trying to bring them in, but anything helps. So let them know
Definitely.
what's going on at their job. So, um, what you were talking about, I was going to bring this up later, but what you were talking about as far as the wages, I mean, they've actually gone down. They've actually gone down. In 2007, starting rate for a union member on the line was $19.60 an hour. In today's wages, that would be $28.68. Okay? So today, if you are a union member starting out on the line, you are making $18.04. The wages have gone down, not even because of inflation. They've just straight up gone down. Okay?
That's wild. And
Yes,
that's unacceptable.
it
And
is.
that's what you get when your union becomes infested with labor bureau, with this sort of like business union type
Exactly. That's what
labor
happens with a pro-business
aristocrats, right?
contract. All right. They told them, hey, if we don't accept lower wages, we'll just ship your jobs to Mexico. It's no problem. They've got GM facilities in Mexico. They've already done that. They've already deindustrialized this country. So they feel like they got us over the barrel, but we're trying to show them something different. And we're going to get into that. There's a very unique demand that I think is revolutionary in its thought, truly.
And
But,
when
you
we
know,
get to that, I think I know what you're talking about. And when we get to it, I want to sort of expand outward to how this affects the US and what Marxists, what communists should be doing about it.
absolutely.
But yeah, go on with what you were saying.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's just they have seen a retreat in pretty much everything. They introduced a tier system, which has been disastrous. So essentially, you got guys who are doing the same exact job, but because they're in one part of the factory on the assembly line, yeah, they have a tiered system. They get paid more money, and everybody's calling it unfair. Yep. Okay. So yeah, everybody's calling it unfair. Nobody likes that. Nobody liked that was implemented. Everybody's been like, what is this? This makes no sense. So That's another demand. They're going to do away with that. It's just straight up. That's already a monumental demand. But to get back to like how things have slipped over the years, in 2007 they had COLA language, which was cost of living adjustment. So as inflation would rise, so would their pay alongside inflation. They don't have COLA anymore. That doesn't exist in their contracts at all. They they have of course they had the same pension plan for all of their employees across the board, and with the implementation of the tier system, there is that doesn't exist anymore. There's different tiers of the pension.
Man,
So there, and as Sean Fain put it, it's not only about the economics of it, it's that they are fundamentally dividing the workers on the job and pitting worker against worker. He fundamentally calls this out, you know?
that is amazing that he does that,
Yeah,
because that is tactic number one
right.
of the ruling class, right? Just in general, anything they can do to keep us fighting each other rather than them. There's a reason my boss, as we were organizing, began telling people what other people were making,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
To
Yeah.
kind of make us go, what the hell? I work harder than, Joe. Why is Joe getting $2 an hour more than I am?
Yep.
Right. And it took a lot of us all hashing that shit out and coming to and like sort of arguing and going back and forth on, look, all of us get more if we work together. Don't letting these millionaires, who happen to have a rich dad, draw a wedge between us is just a tactic.
Exactly.
And when I pointed that out to my coworkers, that's what did it.
Yep.
And so that's why it's so awesome to see him doing this on this giant nationwide scale,
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is very significant. And for him to actually just verbalize that, I mean, saying they're pitting worker against worker, like that rhetoric, we haven't seen that since, like the big steel drives and stuff like that. It's a sad reality of what the labor movement's become. And so another big thing that is going on also is that sorry, lost my train of thought. Oh, so to highlight the just like like how disgustingly like inadequate these wages are and like the disparity that's at play here. So a starting worker at Stellantis has to work 40 hours a week, never miss a day for 16 years to make what the CEO of Stellantis makes in 1 week. Doesn't that blow your mind? Like 16 years for what this person earns in 1 week. Well, not earns, I shouldn't say that. What they're paid in 1 week. All right.
Right. What they're paid out of what we earn.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So just the level of division here. I mean, it's atrocious. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's no wonder the sort of upper PMC is basically might as well be the bourgeoisie at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that person's not a worker. I don't want to hear
right.
that shit.
Like this whole, and CEOs do work. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah, right.
But it's not productive work. First of all, it's
has
not
nothing to do with the transformation of nature. Nothing.
Right. And it's these sort of second tier rich kids who get really, I guess, predatory on each other for who gets to manage the affairs of the ruling class.
Right.
For them, that's how I look at it, and it's like it's so gross and undignified. If you ask me, whatever they have money, but
whatever the CEO is doing has nothing to do with general labor, as a Marxist concept. I mean, they're irrelevant. They're nothing but a bootlicker for the for the shareholders. I mean, that's all it is, for the actual bourgeoisie, the ones who actually own the company.
Yeah, my dad used to Not to be vulgar, but my dad used to say they would line up to see who would bend over for management first.
Yeah, I mean that's how that's how they're hired. I swear to God.
Mhm.
So, um,
Or the shareholders, not man. You know what I mean?
right. I get what you're saying. So, I want to start getting into the demands here because there's 10
Yes,
of them.
let's do that.
There's 10 full demands,
So
and
let me preface this before you go. So
absolutely.
the UAW is in a negotiation right now. The deadline is a month from tomorrow, I think, right?
The month from the 14th,
The 14th.
so
Oh, okay.
September
Okay. So it's
14th.
a little bit over a month away.
But right now they're in negotiations. So I mean, if negotiations just fully break down, I mean, you can see a strike anywhere between now and the 14th of next month.
Right. So this is based on these incredibly, like, concretely progressive demands from UAW, and a lot of this is based on the work of Sean Fain. Uh, the guy in the thumbnail that was given the red salute, that guy.
And
So
not just to say it's just him, because once again, this is he's the figurehead of the movement, but this is by and large coming from the grassroots. These demands.
exactly what I
Yeah,
was just about
he's
to say. Yeah.
giving a voice to that.
Right. What I was what I was trying to get
Sorry.
out and failing at was that his work is empowering the entire union, and that comes out in these demands, right?
Exactly.
So rather than it, being one guy, it's yeah. Anyway, go to the demands. I'm sorry to lather
No,
on.
it's I had to cut you off. You know, I know you're the chief of cutting off, so I felt like I had to give one back for you.
I feel you. I
Not
feel
really.
you.
I was my bad. So I already briefly touched on it, but they want to eliminate the tier system entirely. Not only on the benefit side of things with how the pensions work on the after end, but also just straight up no more tiers. Pay is the same. Does not matter. Um, so that's already a monumental one. Just break up that division of the workers on the job. Uh,
So cool.
yeah, I love it. So then he's considering quick caveat. He considers all of these equal. They all need to be met according to him. This is the red line in the sand. You know, normally when you go into negotiations, you have a list like this, and really only two of them are like your line in the sand. He is saying out the gate, no, all of this, or we're not working. Like, so you gotta admire the chutzpah there. You know, it's he's demanding it all right.
Hell yeah.
So he says, of course, second demand, substantial wage increases, and he goes into detail and says, we're not talking $4 or $5 an hour. That's not substantial. He's saying double digit wage increases. He threw out that number. He said if today's wages kept up from 2007, it would be $28.80 something cents or whatever. Right now it's what was it, $17
Yeah,
an hour.
18, I think he
18,
said.
yeah. So we're talking double digit wage increases, okay? He's not going to accept less. I mean, that's just bottom line. They want to restore the COLA language, meaning the cost of living adjustment, so that these wages keep up with inflation on their own, irrespective of any normal incremental increases that they get throughout the life of the contract. Because they'll say, okay, we want to have 28.50 today, but then this contract's good for 4 years, I believe. So next year we're going to get another dollar and another dollar and another dollar. Okay. But in addition to that, I want my cost of living adjustment. So if inflation goes up 10%, guess what? You're gonna increase that by another 10%. Okay. So very, very important critical demand. That's actually something we're trying to fight for in my contract right now. So defined benefit pension for all workers. Basically, what that means is there are workers at these factories right now who do not qualify for a pension for whatever loophole in the contract that these people can find to deny them their benefits. He's saying equivocally across the board, all of these people need to be rolled into the pension. The end. No discussion about it.
It's just
So
one after the other.
yeah, I
Amazing
mean
thing.
it's yeah, we're gonna get there too. So the fifth demand, he wants to reestablish retiree medical benefits. So right now, if you retire from General Motors, you worked there for 25 years, you put in all your time and everything. You've been working there since you were a kid, and you go ahead and retire. Well, you're forfeiting all your medical benefits, so you don't get it anymore. You don't get access to UAW medical. Okay, so they're saying this is just straight up wrong. This is you're taking vulnerable guys. You're taking guys who you've abused their bodies for 25 years, and then now they go to retire to enjoy what's left, of their golden years, and that's when all your health, starts to deteriorate. And they're saying,
Yeah.
well, you're going to throw them out to the wolves, go on private marketplace and use that shit, or you're going to going to restrict them to Medicaid. This is unjust. So they're saying, no, you got to take care of these, vulnerable members of society. They put in the time. You got to respect that and give them their medical. All right. So, and it also incentivizes people to stay at jobs. Stick it out, and goes to worker retention. So let me get to their other demands here.
That's amazing. I mean, even so far, even just one of these things is huge.
Yeah.
But all of them together.
Well, I
And
think
this
that
is why
last
we
one.
talk about
Yeah, go ahead.
the sort of necessity of revolutionary consciousness coming. This is the way the wind is blowing. And if communists don't get with it, we're going to get left behind and things are going to fall apart, because this is all it can, like, as amazing as this is, the bosses are always going to be fighting back. And so we need to be there to take that next step to when they say we want the right to strike nationally whenever anyone here is on strike. We say we want the right for everyone to strike. Everyone. We want to get rid of Taft-Hartley, which is what prevents that. That kind of thing. And that's what a communist party is for. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But I really wanted to hammer home like that last demand, because I really feel like it speaks to like the moral character. And once again, these are coming from the membership. This is coming from the active guys on the job. And you really see like the working class gets it, They care about the old folks. They care about the people who put in the time. All right? Ultimately, this does nothing to affect the guys who are actually going to vote on this contract, because the guys who vote on this contract are the guys working right now. But they're saying, we really should be taking care of, the older guys, the guys who have already put in the time. We should be respecting that. And it goes a lot into the moral character of Sean Fain, and it goes into a lot of like, this is what the working class, the working class actually understands being a human being, as much as like some people on the left demonize like the blue collar workers. I mean, you can't say anything about that.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. That's another, I mean, they demonize us nonstop in every way, which way,
Yeah.
When we're, negotiating for higher wages, we're selfish and greedy. When, we're negotiating with billionaires for this, who literally are profiting from everybody else's work. And we're just saying, give us more of what we create. Not even all of it yet. I mean, That's coming. Don't worry. But,
yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous. And then, if it's not that, it's everyone's all backwards and reactionary, or any excuse they can to divide workers from issue to issue, they will use it.
Exactly. So, sixth demand, and I think personally, this is the biggest one for me. This is the revolutionary impetus I see behind Sean Fain. Really, Sean Fain is this close to becoming, he's on the Lenin track, all right? So he's
that's high praise.
yeah. I mean, well, I'm gonna say it. He wants the right to strike anytime they want to close a plant. So let's say there's some plant out in Iowa, all right, Montezuma, Iowa. There's a factory there, okay? Let's say there is. It employs 20 people even, doesn't matter, okay? If GM wants to take that factory and they want to do what they did in the 90s after NAFTA and take all the machinery out of that factory and move it to a little new factory in Mexico and shit can all these guys who worked there, okay? They say, no, we want to be able to hold a national strike anytime you even think about closing a factory in this country. You want to close a Ford assembly line, you want to close a General Motors assembly line, you want to close a battery factory, a parts factory, whatever it is. If they're UAW guys and they're under this contract, guess what? We're going on strike. Because you're not closing our plants anymore. We're tired of this deindustrialization. We're tired of the elimination of the blue collar middle class, entry level jobs. We're tired of this stuff. You guys are wrecking our economy. We're done with this.
That is, and you're right. This is a revolutionary demand.
Yeah.
And what it does is, and here's what I really want to emphasize. This wasn't thought up by someone thinking they're enlightened and coming up with it, but out of necessity, out of the necessity of the working class, right? The reason this is a demand is because that's exactly what they were doing. And we all feel the effects of that, right?
Exactly.
It's not just UAW that suffers when they're, stripping these factories down and sending them to the third world. It's entire industries. It's the entire apparatus within production here and in the country they send it to, because it's not like, they're growing industry there. They're extracting that from that country.
They're extracting
underpaying
cheap
those
labor.
workers. Exactly.
That's all it is. And it's not making their life any better. Honestly.
No, not even close. I mean, we can talk directly about GM in Mexico, right?
Yeah.
Who put these factories in alongside these giant agricorp farms, right? Kicked millions of subsistence farmers off their land and did basically what amounted to an enclosure, crowding them all into these factories that they opened up, where they pay pennies for an hour of work and then sell the product. They sell the product for so much that people have to go into debt just to buy that product. And they're making record profits. Kyle mentioned earlier, billions, while they're paying people garbage and stripping the economy down to nothing, and forcing more and more people into those service jobs we mentioned earlier, right? Which I don't know about y'all, but the people that work at the McDonald's near me aren't happy, right? They don't consider that a dignified job. Because they have to put up with every other exhausted working class person's bullshit when they take it out on the poor kid at the register, right? Yeah. And not even just that, it's just a crappy job. It doesn't pay enough to live on, et cetera, et cetera.
The service industry is the closest thing we have to servility in this country. That's all it is. It browbeats people and reduces them to less than human status. It reduces them to a commodity. It reduces their existence, their physical existence, like their smile and their mannerisms and everything else, to a commodity. I mean, it's the most baseline version of that. And we talk about wage slavery, and we talk about commodification of labor when it comes to things like, the factory as well. But it's in a completely different nature. It goes beyond that. I can have whatever opinion I want. I can have a scowl on my face and be generally pissed off at the fucking world and work an assembly line. I can't do that and work in an Olive Garden. Are you kidding me?
Right. And they force you into these performances of good cheer and whatnot, because that's part of it. And what you're saying is precisely what Marx said, right? That it reduces men to machines. But I mean, in our era, it's people in general, right? But that's exactly what it does. He often compared service industry workers to slaves for a reason,
Exactly. So this is transforming. Like, he's this close. I'm sure maybe Sean Fain has achieved class consciousness, maybe, but he's taking these demands just this close to taking the class solidarity of trade unionism, the worker solidarity, if you will, on the job site, and taking it beyond that, taking it to the society at large. And that's exactly what class consciousness is. And I mean, by far, to me, the most important demand on this list. Obviously, they're all important, but this is insane. You're literally telling the bourgeoisie they can't do whatever the fuck they want with their property. Like, that's really the message here. You can't do whatever you want.
Exactly. Yeah. It's we're gonna stop you, and we have the power to stop you. And here is what's exciting to me. This is only the first one, right? This is the beginning. We can't view this on its own, but in connection to everything else, right?
Right.
Who does this inspire? what does this begin? That's what I'm interested in.
Exactly.
Because that is what leads to overturning Taft-Hartley. That is what leads to class consciousness in millions of people. And if we're too busy, arguing over who said what words wrong, or who has the wrong opinion on the 9th Congress of the Soviet Union, we're missing it. We're
exactly.
it's passing us by,
Mhm.
right? Or if we're telling people that if they don't accept protracted People's War as a universal update to Marxism Leninism, then they just suck and they're all
But wait,
reactionaries or
Noah,
whatever.
I forgot this is first world. These aren't even workers. These are the labor aristocracy. Yeah. So yeah, all that's nonsense. The workers are making communists look like they belong in the dustbin of history because they're not involved in this. The workers are being more forward thinking on their own without Marxist ideology,
Right.
and that's sad. Like, we got to step our game up here. This is a really, this is not where we should be. Lenin's turning in his grave right now. This is a sad situation. So
Yeah. It is. I don't want to be too pessimistic
of
on it,
course
though.
not. This should be inspiring. This should be inspiring because you're seeing where the workers are at. They already get it. Just go talk to them. God damn it. Like, just go out the door and start organizing. They're already there. You just have to relate it to them that what they're already demanding on their job, they need to understand that applies to the wider society.
That's
And
all
if
of
you
us.
that's it. They would get it. These guys would get it. These workers would get it. Now you're going to have more of a struggle with non-union workers, but when they see the gains that these guys are making, do you really think they're not going to want to be part of that?
Right.
You're going to see a massive wave of unionization if this goes through. Like,
Of
without a doubt.
course.
Without a
Of
doubt.
course.
And the other big thing you talk about, Noah, is you say you really care about reproletarianization. This is how you achieve it. This is how you achieve it. Right here. Stuff like this, saying like, we're not letting you take the jobs overseas anymore. Guess what? They got to stay here. That's how you halt all the deproletarianization. All right. So I mean, this
This
solves
is
so
like getting
much.
into, this is getting into like a whole different thing, but this is exactly right. If we can, what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, my mind just went blank on it. But what happens is we've sort of been forced into this. And if we can create something out of all of this momentum already happening and even play a networking role, that's what class struggle actually is. People have these sort of weird ideas that it's like everyone someday like agreeing that Marxism is correct. Right? That's not how it works.
No.
Right?
Not at all.
It is a natural phenomenon. It's already happening, and we need to be part of it and play a vital organizing part of it. Right? The people that connect all of these things. And that's what it's all about. It's what Kyle was just saying, right? Saying, hey, that struggle you're in right now, that's all of us, brother. That's all of us. Let's just get together, and we got even more power that way.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, we're this close, guys. Just go outside and organize. But first finish Marxism class, but then go out and organize. All right, guys. So I've talked about demand number 6. So number 7, he's talking about he wants a working family protection program. So he doesn't get into all the specifics of what this program would entail, but one of the big things he talks about is that there are situations where a plant does end up closing right now, and these individuals are forced to go ahead and take a job in a different state. Okay, but they don't. GM doesn't cover any of their expenses to uproot themselves. They can either accept the job and figure out a way to get there, or they're fired.
That's messed up.
Yeah, it's terrible. So he's part of this is okay, either some form of severance that you're going to pay to these guys you laid off, or there needs to be some form of bringing them, paying for the expenses for them to move. And then also there's periods of times, because it's assembly line work, and they have to shut the lines down every year and retool the machines to for the next year's model of cars. And in that time period, they get paid a portion of their pay, but they're saying that portion needs to be more, and basically they really, what they would love to see, I assume, and maybe this language supports that or doesn't, is just they need to receive their full paycheck. Just because you shut the line down doesn't mean that these guys got to go. Last time they shut down at my plant, it was only supposed to be for 4 weeks, and ended up being 6. So they went a month and a half with no pay. I mean, they got some pay. I didn't get any pay, but they got some amount of pay, but it wasn't enough. Like it wasn't their normal pay rate, and they can't collect unemployment during that time if they receive any amount of pay from the company. So
well, that's like how you always get screwed, is that unemployment, right?
Right.
When COVID first hit, for the first 2 months we weren't working, right?
Right.
Before we got reclassified as necessary for some reason. The rich people need their houses.
Yeah,
right. I guess rich people need new cabinets up.
I was gonna say, you really gotta put them cabinets in, man.
Right.
They can't live without them.
They really needed that hole in the drywall fixed. Anyway, what happened was we didn't get paid for any of that, right?
Yeah.
And so we all get on unemployment, and then we get pulled in once a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we're getting a paycheck for that once a week, and can't get the unemployment.
Cancels your unemployment.
Yep. Right. And so like everyone was like begging for those checks from Trump, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was horrible. Like just and it never feels good to have to take a handout. I don't know the sort of atmosphere on your job, but on mine, people were like very pissed about that.
Oh yeah. I mean, right now, we had a short layoff for a week. Guys didn't even collect unemployment because they're too they feel bad about taking a handout from the government. I mean, that's just the reality of working class guys. They don't like they want to earn their money. That's the mentality that it comes down to. And they don't realize that they've already earned it, that this is their tax dollars coming back to them basically, but they won't do it. They feel like it degrades them as usually, and it's usually a man thing. I mean, I work with 99% men, and I feel like degraded as a man having to take a handout from the government. I'm not unemployed. I'm not a bum. That's how they conceptualize it.
Right.
So they just don't even do it, and they leave money on the table. I mean, it's a sad situation. And then they're going without pay, and then they got to miss bills and stuff. But they'd rather do that than to feel like they're less of a man. It's just the reality of how it works.
Yeah, and it's a bummer, but what are you gonna do? I'm not gonna tell them how to live their lives.
Exactly. You can't go in and preach stuff like that to people. I mean, that's
right.
that's world shattering for them. We're trying to get them into Marxism, not go in there and scold them about their about how to run their finances.
Right, and that's I think that's one of the things that sort of differentiates working class people from the middle class, who has sort of ran the left in the last period. And one of the reasons there's such a culture clash between us is because that's precisely what they do, is come in and start scolding everyone. So anything that even smells like that to working class people, they're just sort of, in general, turned off to it. Like, don't tell me what to do. Go. I don't care. I don't tell you what to do. Leave me alone. Whenever that kind of starts, and that's the nicest you'll get. I want to real quick before we move on. We got a new member. Thank you, Kappa. I can't pronounce that, but thank you so much. I don't want to insult you by mispronouncing it. That's awesome. Welcome.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, go on with the next few demands.
So more, right? We're up to demand number 8. We're gonna end the abuse of temp workers, and this one's another big deal. So during COVID, there had always been language that during like surges in production, the union would allow the company to hire some temporary workers, okay? Come in for a couple months and just help out on the line. Now, during COVID, the companies abused this like to the utmost. They were like, "Hey, guys are getting sick and stuff. Can we just like flood the factory with temps until COVID's gone?" And we swear it's only till COVID's gone. And that's what they did. So they hired all these people in, have them working as temps. So they're not part of the union. They have a lower pay scale, and they don't get benefits. So I mean, it's really shitty situation. And so they brought them all in, and they're still working there. I got something. So back in the day when
Still
you were,
working there as temps, to
yeah,
be clear.
yeah, still working as temps to this day. We had, so back before the COVID time, you could only work as a temp for a maximum of 6 months, and then, or I think it was 6 months. Then you had to be offered a uh, union membership and full, not a temp. You were a permanent employee, or you gotten rid of. So we have people who are temps who have been working at the factory that I deliver the parts to. They've been working there for 4 years. In that 4 years, they've been getting paid less than everybody else. They have no benefits whatsoever. That includes medical, and they don't have they have no union rights. And there has been no attempt and no outline of an attempt by GM management to get these people into any sort of formal process to bring them into the union and to give them permanent positions. So these people are being abused. And on top of that, uh, this is, that this is screwing the union over too. I mean, they're not bringing in new blood. They're not bringing in new people. So
Right.
as union members retire, guess what? They're just hiring more temps. So they're just flooding the factories with temps. So it's a big deal. And so
I'm
they
sure.
say
I'm sure
that's
if
got
it
to
were
go.
up to them, it'd be all temps, right?
Exactly. That's what they were hoping for,
Right.
So
It reminds me. We had a similar situation in my shop. We have summer help, right?
hmm,
Every summer, and a lot of it's college people who are gone for the summer.
right.
But maybe every summer, maybe a third of them want to stay on, and they stay on, but at that lower tier
Right.
where they're just sort of like unskilled labor. They get tossed from crew to crew. They never get trained properly. None of that. And so we tried to uh, sort of reorganize how they get hired in and bring it through us rather than ownership. And it unfortunately it fell apart. Um, but it's really sad what it every single inch they can take, they will. And it's
Yeah.
so sad to see that kind of thing happen. And I mean, it took the last guy who wanted to stay on full time, it took him a year for us to be able to get him a full time job.
Right.
Just get him a full time job.
Yeah. I mean, but like this is not only that, but this is on a national level. I mean, they're hiring. They're really ruining hundreds of people's lives, like probably thousands of people's lives, honestly, because they're bringing them in and they're not giving them anything. I mean, they're making very little. I think at Wentzville, I think they're making like $16. It's like, what is that good for? I mean, they can make that at a gas station nowadays. It's really sad.
It's
And
impossible to live on. That's what it is.
yeah, exactly. And they're working them to death too. I mean, they're working 60-hour weeks right now.
Jesus.
So and there's no medical benefits too. I mean, just not
It's
right.
messed up, man.
Straight up not right.
So messed up.
So number 9, he says there got to be more paid time off to be with your families and everything else. This is paid PTO. They want to increase PTO flat out. And he even talks about in his live stream here that I'm getting all this information from. He says in the future, next contract maybe, I want to make full time 32 hours a week. He's like,
That is what's
we
up.
need I want workers to get paid the same amount that they're getting paid at 40 hours, but I want them only working 32 because you can't like there's no reason for this shit. We got so many people unemployed and everything else. You could bring some more people in to cover hours if you want to do a 24/7 run. It doesn't matter. You don't need these guys working 40 hours a week. I mean, he says most industrialized countries are moving away from 40 hours a week. We need to start that here. And
Absolutely.
just flat out, that was pretty much verbatim what he said. So I 100% agree with that. What's the it's not always about pay with working class guys. It's about being able to maintain the style of life they have and maximizing the amount of time they have off so they can spend it with their families. They can spend it pursuing things they actually care about, not working on some goddamn assembly line for some rich asshole shareholder. Like
Right.
that's the reality of our lives right now, and we're tired of it.
The less time we spend breaking our bodies to make some other people rich, the better.
Yeah. Last week I worked 67 hours last week.
Jesus.
How much time do you think I got to actually spend with people I care about, people, doing anything I want to do?
Right.
Today
That's
I worked 12 and a half
horrible,
hours, it's like, where's the time in the day anymore?
Mhm.
It's really sad. So he wants to go to a 32-hour full time. That's what full time is, and we're not gonna. And he wants to move towards that next contract. He realizes, we're asking for a lot. This ain't gonna happen right off the bat. But I guarantee you, next contract,
But you
you're
know
gonna see
what?
that.
This is something, and the 8-hour day, the 40-hour week, the weekend, all of these would not have been achieved in the US without the Communist Party.
Yeah.
And so this is something that we should be really, really focused on. And if we were already rebuilt and had all these connections with labor, we could already be organizing, hey, we're all going to demand this at once.
Exactly.
And as this comes up next time, we need to be in the position to be able to forward those.
Exactly.
So anywhere you are right now, get active, learn about the local unions, the local community organizations, anything you need, anything you can get to, get involved in it because shit's happening right now. Don't let it pass you by. This is the most important time in our lifetimes,
Oh,
right?
yeah, and
This is what's happening.
I got one more demand to list as well, but I just want to take the time to say, I guarantee this is a nationwide. Like, this is General Motors, Ford, Stellantis. I mean, this is huge. This is 150,000 workers across the entire country. I guarantee you, right now, if you went and you looked up what General Motors or Ford facility is near you, I guarantee you it's not that far. And they're going to be affected if they go on strike. I would challenge every single guy watching this, everybody who watches this afterwards. If there's a strike, go out to that picket line. Talk to these workers. You cannot expect to who, if not you, then who? If not now, then when? This is the time. If you're serious about being a Marxist, if you're serious about forwarding class struggle, go to the masses. Go to the workers. You don't need to go out there and start preaching. Just go out there and talk to them. Bring them a coffee. Bring them some water bottles. There's going to be people on the picket line 24/7 if this strike goes down. Okay. They got to maintain that picket line, or guess what? General Motors can bust in some scabs, no problem. They can open up
And
that
they
factory,
will.
and they will. So these people will remain vigilant on these strike lines. Go out and talk with them. They're there. They want people to hear about what's going on. They want that attention. Go ahead and give it to them and talk to these people. Just have normal conversations and hear them out and talk politics with them. Talk shop. Ask them what do they agree with the demands? What do they think should have been added? Just spitball with these people. They're normal people like you and me.
Damn straight. And I know, like, some people can be a little socially awkward. I know it's a weird situation to get yourself into. Here is my advice for that. Go up to anyone there. Go, hey, who do I talk to about helping out?
Yeah.
Go up to that person and go, I'm here. How can I help? That's it.
Right.
You don't have to, start telling them communism's the answer. You don't have to do any of this stuff.
Don't do that.
Just go and help. And
don't go out there and start preaching about the Soviet Union. Go out there and talk to them and ask them, why the fuck they're out here and what do they think, and be a normal human being and build that rapport with them.
Right.
These
And
are
then
these are
when it
people
comes
who
up,
probably
go,
live
oh
in your
yeah, I'm a
community.
communist, right? The Midwestern Marx Institute had this interview with this guy who was in the Teamsters, and he suggested we do this to help you guys, and we want to help. We want to be involved. People respect that shit. Anytime that I've been on a picket and people randomly showed up, it was like a party. We hung out, we talked, and trust me, politics does come up.
Oh,
You
absolutely.
can say you don't want to talk about it, and people will respect it, but you don't need to force it, is what I'm trying to say.
And you can just have normal conversations, like he said, politics comes up. We're working Joes. We got nothing else to do. We're sitting there talking about everything. All right. So we'll talk about politics all day. I get in conversations with my guys about Trump all the time because they all are Trump guys. So we'll have conversations about it, and I'll try and be like, look, I get where you're coming from, but let me tell you how maybe that doesn't maybe that doesn't work out in the long run. I hear you like this Trump guy, but I don't know. I think maybe you got to take that organic working class movement around Trump and take it a little bit further, And so, I have those talks, and that they respect that. You got to have conversations. You can't just come in and be like, "Have you guys heard about Joseph Stalin?" That's not going to get you.
And by the way, don't be a cartoon. That is my biggest advice. That people are trained, especially when they're like Trump supporters, they're trained to envision someone on the left as hearing they voted Trump and going bonkers, right? And like, you're racist, right? Don't do that. Go, and you know what? I understand. I understand where they're coming from. I understand where you're coming from. Just here's how I've gotten my coworkers who were Trump people off of Trump. I acknowledge that Trump had some really good rhetoric on the campaign trail. When he was talking about draining the swamp, even acknowledging that there is a swamp to be drained is huge and wasn't happening with anyone else. Right? So acknowledge that. But then you go, did he actually drain that swamp? Exactly. No. It got worse on his watch. Did he actually lock Hillary Clinton up? No. The Clinton machine is still there.
Yep.
Right? So did he bring these manufacturing jobs back that he promised? No. What he did was govern a lot like Obama.
Yep.
That's what he actually did. And when you compare him to Obama, they've never heard that. That gets them thinking.
Yeah. That's not only taboo for the right, that's a taboo for the Obama, the liberals and all of them. I mean, they would never make that comparison. And I'm gonna say another thing. You have more in common with the most vile, reactionary Trump supporter than he does with Trump.
Yeah,
that's just facts. That's it. That's it. That is the core thing at the end of the day. You as a working class person, I assume nobody in here is Jeff Bezos, although it'd be cool if you watched. I don't know.
I mean, speak
that
for
would be
yourself.
interesting.
Our buddy Pennis Dragger over here.
Oh yeah, hell yeah. That's a legend right there.
He is a legend.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Thank you for everything, Pennis Dragger.
So the thing is, though, you have more in common with that person who supports a reactionary politician, holds the most backwards views than that person will ever hold in common with Trump. So who do you really think, if you talk at the end of the day, who do you really think they're going to relate to and have a conversation with and understand? It's you. As long as you don't go in there judgmental, you really have nothing to fear.
Right.
That's all it comes
We're
down
all organically and materially, we all have the same interests. We all have the same material enemy, the ruling class. I see someone asking me here what I'm drinking. I'm drinking Waterloo Seltzer, black cherry flavored. Waterloo Company. If you want to pay me to say Waterloo Seltzer, by all means, please do so.
But yeah, so just to wrap up these demands, I want to
Yeah,
cover the
yeah. Go
last one,
ahead.
and
You
it goes
got me.
back to giving a shit about guys who don't even vote on this contract. It's back to retirees. They want to increase the retiree payouts because a lot of these pension payouts were um, since they got rid of the cost of living adjustment language and everything else. I mean, like, the guys who retired 10 years ago, maybe they're getting like $500 a month or something. Like, it's nothing. It doesn't
That's
even cover their basic costs of living, and these are elderly people, and
right.
they say, no,
And
you guys are taking advantage of the most disenfranchised people in society, and that's the elderly, and we're
let
not
me
we're not
let
going to
me
stand
interrupt
for that
real
anymore.
quick. This right here is a really, really good uh, example of the deprivation of the ruling class. These people have busted their bodies up and worked decades making these owners rich. And now they are
Yeah.
tossing them out to live these undignified lives as they get older. That ain't right. That
Yeah.
just ain't right. And any working class people will that you talk to about this will agree with you,
I'll
bro.
take it a step further, man. It's even worse than that. It's not only are they taking it, they're throwing out these guys who have already retired. There are people who are well past the retirement point, who should be retired, who are 65 plus, 70 years old, on the job, barely making it each day without a serious incident in the workplace, but they can't retire because that is not enough pay. They'd lose their medical benefits. Maybe they got a debilitating health thing, Maybe they're going through dialysis or something, and they're going to work, but they really shouldn't be. I mean, it's really disheartening to see. Like, I see guys who are like barely making it through the workday, and they really have no other choice besides keep showing up to work because they just they can't afford to retire. You got
Yeah.
these guys, they're working themselves into the grave. I mean, they may have been able to live another 20 years, but at this rate, that maybe another 5, even if they retired today. And
And
that's the sad reality of it. I mean, it's disgusting how they treat these people. They do not give a shit about them at all. Exactly. What kind of society treats of the most fucked up society you can imagine, and that's the one we live in right now.
yeah, and that's why we fight to change it. Um, my mom should be able to live a dignified life as she gets older. We can't even afford home health aid for her right now. Every single night, I'm worried she's going to fall, be not near her phone, and I won't be able to help. Because I'm working full time. I can't be over there, right? Is my sister's 6-year-old gonna take care of her? You know what I mean? Like, it's impossible to continue going on, provide for your family, and make sure your family that is getting older can live an okay, happy life as they get old and be with their family and just have fun, be calm and peaceful and whatever they want to do, you know? And the reason that they cannot in our society is directly tied to the ruling class.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Anyway,
like I said, this isn't these people who are already retired. They're not voting on this contract. It's the membership that's voting on this. They're the ones who elevated this demand because they see the injustice that's happening, and they're like, we can't stand for this shit anymore. We got to do something about it. So I don't know. I think it really highlights the ethos of like what these guys are really all about. It really speaks to these people's characters, putting these demands in there like that. That's just my opinion, though. They're fighting for people they don't even have to fight for.
and that's
It's
a
that
big
simple.
deal.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. And it speaks to that being on the edge of class consciousness,
Yeah.
right? Because it ain't just about their day to day job, it's about something bigger,
Hmm.
right? Something more long term, something more connected and communal, right? We don't call it communism for no reason.
Exactly.
Anyway, that was the 10th demand, right?
Yep. That's it. That's their 10 core demands, and like I said, they're all to Mr. Sean Fain. It's all equal. It's all or nothing. Either you meet all of this right now, you subhuman weirdos on the goddamn executive board of these companies, or guess what? You're not going to have any more people on the job site. We're going to go on strike. And it's just that simple.
Damn straight. I love it. And I love this from Jesse Brar, who says the national bourgeoisie has made communism and Marxism a foreign concept to the American working class. We need to make them realize communism is the true realization of the American dream. Well said, Jesse. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not wrong. If you learn about Marxism, as you should be if you're watching the Midwestern Marx Institute, right? It's that there's no such thing as a foreign ideology coming in and taking over. As much as the ruling class wants to fearmonger that communism is Russian or Chinese or whatever, American communism is only going to be American communism. It's going to arise and is arising from the traditions and struggles and history of our society. There's a reason we talk about Du Bois as the father of American Marxism, right? Because it's Du Bois that focuses on the particular American class struggle. What got us to where we are now, we need Du Bois to understand. He wasn't, and that doesn't mean we can't, understand Lenin or Marx as universal because they were Russian and German, respectively. No, it's everything. There's a universal and a particular. But communism, sorry to sort of get into this weeds, but there's only one time Marx ever says communism is, and it's in the German ideology. And he says that communism is for us not a state of being or something that we want to force reality to become. Instead, it is the real movement of history. And that's not a direct quote. I'm summarizing what he's saying. But what he means is that society progresses by general laws of development, right? Communism is that process going on. And someone's asking, never mind. They're joking, and I don't have a good enough sense of humor to know that they were joking in the chat. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing also is that being a Marxist-Leninist, you have to reject national nihilism. Also, we have a country. I mean, as flawed as it is, and that's the United States of America. Sorry.
Yeah, and
I know that's going to get me canceled on Twitter or something, but it's just. I don't know what to tell you.
Canceled here, brother. You're
right.
But it's true, right? Like there is a materiality of societies, right? That's just how it develops. That is a Marxist position on what society is. And so if we look at it as sort of an immaterial thing, if an American middle class person says, I'm not American, I am a citizen of the world, right? No, you're still American. That's still what created you. You're just pretending you're not, right?
This is like some Sakai nonsense about the end of history, like the whole world is Western Europe now. So really, it's this whole, Japan is becoming like Europe, supposedly China is going to become like Europe. It's all nonsense. You're a member of the global community, sure, but first and foremost, what does that world consist of? Does it consist of nations? I don't know.
There's a big difference between proletarian internationalism and rootless cosmopolitanism, which the first word in that is rootless because there is no root to it, right? It doesn't have a basis in material reality. When we talk about being internationalists, it is a shared community of interests of the working class, which is a universal, right? The proletariat and now the reproletariat. But that takes particular form in different societies. And so again, American communism takes an American form, just like, Chinese socialism has Chinese characteristics. It's not copying the Soviets. They didn't bring Soviet, brainwashing in or whatever. They developed all their own stuff, just as we do.
Right. And here's the other thing. China is a country that is made up of, what is it, like dozens of like ethnic minorities and like different groups. Like Han Chinese is not what Chinese is. Chinese is all of these things blended together into one national identity. If that
Yeah,
doesn't sound like America, I don't know what is. Like,
right,
and they're
exactly.
doing it. They're doing it. So don't give me this shit anymore about we can never be anything besides some country that needs to be dissolved.
Settlers,
I
yeah.
don't want to hear that crap anymore. Everybody's tired of that. Working class people don't want to hear that crap. I mean,
No. And working
just
class
dustbin
people,
of history, that stuff.
and here's the thing. Back in the day, we were kept separate by law. Remember, we had Jim Crow here, and before Jim Crow, chattel slavery. Our ruling class kept us divided, kept the working people divided. The American trajectory has been 200 years of the struggle of the working class and its most advanced sections against that, against the class that would keep us divided and squabbling amongst ourselves and toiling in the muck to make them rich, right?
Exactly.
We've had 200 years now to build ourselves up into what are Americans now, right? An American working class. And this is typified by the uprisings when George Floyd got murdered, right?
Mm-hmm.
People rose up all over this country. They rose up in urban centers, in rural centers, in cities, in suburbs, in places that had never had protests before. Why? Because the state had murdered one of us.
Exactly.
One of us. That's what's important, right? Not one of them, and we think that's bad. One of us, a poor working class American.
Yeah.
Sorry to go off on a little rant.
I think what unifies the working class is much more essential than what truly divides it. And I think that's just the reality.
Oh, absolutely, 100%, brother. What unites us is material.
Exactly.
This shared struggle and history and respect, this continual growing closer over time. And you can't take that away from us. You just can't. Well said, guy whose name I cannot pronounce.
New member. We value your inputs. Great work.
1000%.
And you're right. I was actually, before I was a Teamster, I was in the Seafarers International Union. And we existed in Canada and the United States. You're absolutely right.
That is what's up. Well, listen, Kyle, this has been awesome.
Hell yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for helping inform everybody about these monumental steps in the class struggle. I hope everybody learned a little bit about what class struggle really looks like on the ground. I know I did.
Absolutely.
And, I've been in it for a while, but you can learn something new anytime.
Yeah.
We're always learning new things. So before we go, I just want to remind everybody, like and subscribe. If you want to help us out, we really appreciate that. We have no funding whatsoever. Every little tiny bit of our budget comes from you guys and your super chats and your donations at patreon.com/MidwesternMarks, all that stuff. So yeah, we're going to play ourselves out with the same way we came in with the international. But everybody, before we go, say bye to Kyle. He's a face I hope you will because I hope to see him again real soon.
Absolutely. And a quick reminder, I better see you guys out on that strike line if it comes to it. All right. I was serious about that.
That is what's up. If anybody needs help on how to get involved, where they can go in their area, get a hold of us. We will track down the info for you. We're plugged into a lot of these unions, so please don't be shy. You will be accepted if you go and help. I guarantee you. All right. All that being said, everybody have a great night. We'll see you in the struggle.
Solid.
economic injustice cannot be solved without a radical redistribution of political